Welcome back to the Dividend Diplomat YouTube channel. You got your boys here, Lanny and Bert, the Dividend Diplomats. Today we're going to compare three large cap ETFs right here. We got SCHG, QQQ, and VUG. We're going to run them through, give our opinion to see which one of these large cap tech-focused ETFs we like the best.
Smash that subscribe button. Give us a nice thumbs up, guys. Three other ETFs that you guys have been clamoring about. Well, we're bringing it here on today's video. As Bert said, we're going through the quick description of the ETF, the top 10 holdings, what the overall goal is, but we'll look at holdings, expense ratios, yields, dividend growth, performance. It's going to be pretty cool, and we'll see which one we might think is the best one.
Yeah, and what really spawned this is a lot of your comments, everybody. A lot of people are saying I balance SCHD with SCHG. What about QQQ? So we take your feedback to heart, and we've been looking into these more. So we thought it'd be fun to do a video on them. Let's start. Good old Chuck Schwab, SCHG. I guarantee you at least once in this video, I'm going to slip up and call this SCHD. So the description for SCHG focuses on the total return of the Dow Jones U.S. Large Cap Growth Total Stock Market Index. That's what they're hitting. That's what they're targeting with their purpose. Lanny, what about QQQ? What's their focus?
Well, QQQ is really the top 100 largest non-financial institutions listed on the NASDAQ, guys. Ooh. Rebalanced quarterly, reconstituted annually. Sounds a little like SCHD to me.
That's right. So VUG, we're heading over to Vanguard's family. They track the CRSP U.S. large cap growth. And that's where they're focusing. They have a position too where they're not going to purchase more than any 10% of outstanding security, and that for at least 75% of the funds. We have all the descriptions up here. The big takeaways are SCHG, Dow Jones, QQQ, NASDAQ 100. Vanguard VUG focuses on the CRSP. Three completely different ways to focus on to slice this pie up for large tech stocks.
All right, so let's take a peek, guys, at Schwab's SCHD. Before we dig in, these top 10 holdings, all of these names. I'll name the first five, Brooke can name the next five, but top 10, top to down: Microsoft, NVIDIA, Apple stock, Amazon stock, and Meta stock.
And Broadcom, Tesla, Google A, Google C, and Visa. The top three, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Apple, are 10% plus. Apple's at 9%. Overall, these top 10 make up 56% of SCHG.
Wow, pretty impressive. And the expense ratio, they're able to keep it pretty low at 4 basis points. That's 0.04%, real solid, representing 229 holdings, much larger than their SCHD counterpart.
Yeah, I like the little contrast here. They have $41 billion in this fund, and the yield, Lanny, that yield is about 0.4%, which makes sense when we read you that top 10. You're not expecting a high juiced up dividend yield.
That NVIDIA yield.
No, when those
Tesla and Amazon yield.
Yeah, if they had a high yield, that would be a problem, because that would mean the other 44% are a bunch of garbage that you do not want in the fund. So, okay. What interesting thing too, price to earnings ratio for SCHG, 32x. Again, tracks because we're focusing on high growth tech stocks. That makes sense. They have a high turnover rate, Lanny. Typically, you don't like to see too high of a turnover rate. This fund turns over 24% of its holdings.
Yeah, 25% every year, and they're turning over its positions. Pretty wild. Take a look at the history of dividend growth. 3-year growth rate for SCHG, 9.54%. 5 years, 3.57%. 10-year, long period of time, 10.49% on average.
Interesting. And how is it performing? Down 1% year to date, up 15% over the last year, and up 118% over the last 5 years. So it's had a great 5-year run, but struggled in 2025.
Cruising. So that's SCHG, guys. We're going to slide over to the triple Q, the Invesco ETF QQQ, again, tracking not the Dow, but the NASDAQ 100, guys. Been around for over 25 years, this ETF. This is going to be the oldest ETF on this listing. SCHG has been around for about 16 years. So QQQ, 25, 26-year ETF, their top 10 holdings are going to be almost the exact same, but Microsoft, NVIDIA, Apple, Amazon, Broadcom is their top 5. And what about the last 5?
Meta, Tesla, Netflix, Costco, and Google. So the big difference there is Costco is the only one that's in QQQ's top 10. That
And
one,
Netflix, yeah.
yeah. Oh, and Netflix, and that's not in SCHG's top 10, but they are. When I was doing the research, I only put the top 10. Those two are in, I think, the top 20 for SCHG. So really the same. Another interesting thing is Microsoft and Nvidia are the top 2, but they're only 8.5% of the fund versus 10% plus for SCHG.
Yeah. And when you actually take a look at it, obviously they don't have Visa or Google C in their top 10, which allows them to have the Netflix and Costco.
That's right. And I bet you they'd be in their top 22 if we expanded it out. So that's their top 10. Let's look at some of these metrics. Expense ratio is actually higher. It's at 0.2% versus 0.04 for SCHG, which is a little shocking to see something that high for a pretty standard tech-focused fund.
Yeah, I mean, 101, holdings. Again, they're looking at the top 100. So there's probably a little bit of, hangover there with an extra holding. 333 billion in assets under management, pretty wild. 0.58% SEC yield, similar to SCHG, a 32 PE. Turnover rate is about a third, so 8% turnover, which that's what surprises me about how high their expense ratio is.
Yeah, I'm just fact checking this on another website to make sure that's the expense ratio. Yeah, 0.2%. That's the second site. Seems odd that you have a 0.2% with less holdings and a lower turnover.
But do they make it up in maybe some passive income growth?
Yeah, their 3-year dividend growth rate's 19.86%. Sheesh.
Costco, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm making myself laugh now. That's a huge dividend growth rate. Sorry, everyone. 5-year dividend growth rate's 13% compared to 3% in SCHG and 10% for the 10 years.
Pretty comparable to SCHD over a 10-year period.
Yeah.
This year, they're up at 1.5%, outpacing SCHG. 1 year, 14.5%, behind SCHG by about 1%. And then 5 years, 116.5%. So trailing by about 2% from SCHG.
Okay, so let's just talk about that with the expense ratio. You have a higher expense ratio. They picked up on it in recent dividend growth. That's where you see a huge benefit. So the research and the management research, all the time effort going in there has produced some strong dividend growth for QQQ compared to SCHG. But performance-wise, hasn't really moved the needle that much.
Slightly higher yield?
Yes, slightly higher yield. Interesting. Okay. That was QQQ, everybody. Vanguard. The silent assassin, I would say, is
VUG.
Yeah, you never hear people talk about VUG, much like you never really hear people talk about VYM when they talk about
one-year ETF.
Yeah, it's a great one. So let's jump right in here. Their top 10, Lanny. Why don't you kick off their top 5? Let's follow the same pattern.
Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA. So a little bit of a change up in the top 3, but then Amazon and Meta.
All right, and then Broadcom, Google A, Tesla, Eli Lilly, and then Google C. So there's a big shakeup here for VUG. And the top 10 makes up 56%, with Apple at 11.6% taking that top position.
Whoa. Wow. So Apple's at the top. Again, top 3 is 30%, kind of like SCHG. When you actually take a look at it without Eli Lilly, it seems like Visa and Eli Lilly kind of are swapping positions here between SCHG and VUG. And then obviously they don't have Netflix or Costco like QQQ has. 56.5% of the top 10 represent the entire ETF, guys.
Ooh.
The expense ratio, though, is similar to SCHG at only 4 basis points per.
Yeah, they have 166 holdings and they have 269 billion assets under management. Their yield, not bad at 0.47% either.
No, so a little bit higher than the SCHG. You look at the PE around 35, higher than all the other two. Turnover is in the middle at 11%. But
All right.
Bert, how does dividend growth stack up on this specific ETF?
Interesting. Their dividend growth, their 3-year dividend growth is 10.04%. Then, though, it looks much more like SCHG and how it's going to look here, Lanny, with a 5-year dividend growth rate of 2.68%, followed up with a 10-year of 3.98%. And I am going to fact check that here again just to make sure, because that 10-year dividend growth rate seems awful.
Seems terrible.
I mean, it does. I'm not going to lie. Like
ETF in and of itself, as Bert's looking that up 0.66% year to date.
Yeah. I fact checked it. That's right. They've had some bad dividend growth.
At 5 years, 107%. So they are beating SCHG year to date 1 year, but lagging on the 5 year. And they're lagging QQQ on year to date, beating on the 1 year, but lagging on the 5 year for VUG.
All right, everyone. So we're going to put the chart up here at these high-level metrics with all three. I were going to rank them for how am I going to invest? Which ones would I jump into first? I would say SCHG. Number 2 is a little more difficult for me, though, Lanny, because even though it has a higher expense ratio, I like the makeup. I like what QQQ's done a little bit more than VUG.
They're all good.
They're great. Yeah. I think it's SCHG is the number 1 that I like the best, and then the other ones are 2A, 2B to me. But yeah, they're all great funds.
We might have to bust out at some point maybe a 10 or 20 year chart because SCHG doesn't go back 20. We could bust out 15 years at least just to see what the overall return is. Just to check, but can't go wrong. I'm not a buyer since I have all these companies in my VOO that I buy every single day.
Yeah, but I like it too. If people are looking for tech exposure and they don't want to just buy the individual stocks and they want that heavy tech, heavy growth, super low yield, high growth, you're not going to go wrong with these. I see why people refer us to SCHG all the time, but right now I'm just going to keep buying the VIG and SCHG combo. And then if I want more growth, I'll consider one of these, but not right now.
There it is, guys. What are you buying? Do you own SCHG? Do you own QQQ? Do you own VUG? Let us know in those comments, guys, below.
If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, give this video a thumbs up. And remember, you are either with us or you are against us, Jack.
That was Bert and Lanny from the Dividend Diplomats. Over and out.